I never thought a single night could change the way I looked at my life, my marriage, and even myself. But sometimes the smallest choices and the most unexpected encounters set in motion a chain of events you can never undo. I had always considered myself someone who knew where the lines were drawn, someone who lived by rules and promises, someone who had built her life carefully like a house of cards but that night I learned how fragile even the strongest vows can be, and how a hidden truth can live inside you, burning slowly, until it consumes everything. For most of my life, I thought I was happy. On the outside, I had everything. A husband who worked hard, a home that looked picture perfect, a family image that others admired. But behind closed doors, things were different. We were no longer truly partners. My husband and I had grown distant, almost like strangers sharing the same roof. We spoke about bills, groceries, responsibilities, but not about feelings. Nights were cold, mornings rushed, and I couldn't remember the last time he looked at me like he once did, as if I was the most important person in his world. I told myself this was normal, that marriages change, that routines settle in. But deep down, I was aching for something I didn't dare say out loud. Attention, affection, the feeling of being seen and desired. I buried that need because I had always been the one who stayed loyal, who kept the family together. Still, no matter how much you push away your emotions, they find cracks to slip through. It began innocently enough, or so I believed. A visitor came into our lives, someone connected to my husband. Someone younger, full of energy, and different from what I was used to. At first, he was just another presence in the house, another person to take care of. But as the days passed, I noticed things I shouldn't have. The way his eyes lingered just a second too long. The way he laughed at my words when no one else even listened. The way he seemed to notice when I was tired or quiet. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that I was imagining it, but every small moment fed something inside me. For the first time in years, I felt alive again, like I wasn't invisible. That dangerous spark grew slowly, almost silently, until I realized I was looking forward to his company more than I should have. One evening, when the house was quiet, everything shifted. My husband was away, busy as usual, and the silence between us and the guests stretched longer than it should have. I remember sitting there trying to focus on the television, but my thoughts raced. I could feel the tension in the air, unspoken yet undeniable. And when our eyes met, I knew that line I had promised myself I would never cross was closer than ever. What happened next wasn't planned. It wasn't carefully thought out or prepared. It was impulsive, reckless, and yet it felt inevitable. For years, I had been starving for affection, for a touch that meant more than obligation, for words that made me feel like I mattered. And suddenly, I was being offered exactly what I had missed. The guilt came almost instantly, like a shadow over the fire. Even in the middle of feeling wanted again, part of me screamed that it was wrong, that this wasn't who I was supposed to be. But another part, the part that had been silenced for so long, whispered that maybe I deserved this. Maybe I had given too much of myself away to a man who no longer cared. Maybe this was the universe's way of reminding me I was still alive. That night changed everything. It was the beginning of a secret I carried deep within me, a secret that grew heavier every day. On the outside, life went on as if nothing had happened. My husband came home, we continued with our routines, and no one suspected a thing. But inside, I was torn apart. Every glance, every small memory of that night replayed in my mind, haunting me. I told myself I could bury it, that it was just one mistake, a single slip in a lifetime of loyalty. But mistakes don't just disappear. They linger, they demand attention. They whisper to you when you're alone. And the hardest part was not just the guilt, but the craving. Once you've tasted what you've been missing, it's almost impossible to go back to emptiness. Days turned into weeks. And what should have ended that night quietly became a dangerous pattern. I hated myself for it, yet I couldn't stop. Every time I thought it would be the last, I found myself pulled back in, as if my heart and body no longer belonged to me, but to this secret life I had stumbled into. But secrets are never truly safe. One evening, my husband looked at me differently, as if he sensed something had changed. He didn't have proof, but I could feel suspicion growing in his silence. The way he asked simple questions, the way he studied me when he thought I wasn't looking, it all told me he was beginning to notice cracks in the perfect image. The fear of being discovered consumed me. I lay awake at night wondering what would happen if he knew, if the world we had built collapsed because of my choices. Would he leave me? Would he hate me? Would he expose me to everyone? The thought made me shiver. But even more terrifying was the thought of giving up what I had found, the attention, the feeling of being alive again, the reminder that I still mattered. I was trapped between two worlds. The life I had built on promises and the secret life that made me feel like myself again. And the weight of it was crushing me. The breaking point came when someone else almost found out. A slip of words, a glance held too long, a coincidence that almost exposed everything. In that moment, I realized just how fragile my secret was, how close I was to losing everything. My hands shook, my chest tightened, and I knew I had to make a choice. But choices are never simple. Do you choose loyalty even when it feels one-sided? Do you sacrifice your own happiness to protect an image? Or do you risk it all for something that may not last? I didn't know the answer then, and even now as I look back, I still struggle with it. This is my truth, my confession. I'm not proud of it, but I can't deny it either. That night, and the ones that followed, changed me forever. They taught me how fragile love can be, how easily loneliness can push you to places you never imagined, and how the heart can betray the mind no matter how hard you try to control it. Some people will judge me. Others might understand, and maybe a few will see themselves in my story. But the truth is, once you've crossed that line, you can never go back to who you were before. You carry it with you, like a scar hidden beneath your skin. A reminder of choices you made when you were desperate to feel alive, and now, every time I look at my husband, every time I hear his voice, I wonder if he knows, if he suspects, if he feels the distance I try so hard to hide. I wonder if one day the truth will come crashing down, exposing everything, tearing apart the life we built. Or if maybe, just maybe, this secret will remain mine alone, locked away in the shadows of memory. But no matter what happens, one thing will always remain: the night that changed everything. The night that reminded me of what it felt like to be seen. And the night that showed me how dangerous it can be to let loneliness write your story.